I got something inside that's got me on the road to ruin. I don't know how and I don't know when, but if it happens again, I'm afraid it'll do me in. What I ask is unconventional, but I assure you it's intentional. You're a professional. I need a love out of me, beyond a shadow of a doubt. I think it's time to cut it out. A love out of me. It starts with a scream, goes out whimpering, and there goes my dick in the dirt. I'm sure a stronger man could probably make a stand, but I'm Custer standing here in my Target shirt. Plant my flag in the sit and spin, see the arrows sailing in. Looks like a lot of Indians. I need a love out of me, beyond a shadow of a doubt. I think it's time to cut it out. Take a hike, a love out of me, just set my heart free, cut the love out of me.
Welcome to the Friends of Dan Music Podcast. I'm Dan Miles. You've been listening to the music of Robbie Rist. Though he's probably best known as an actor, he also happens to be a highly skilled music producer and multi-instrumentalist, and as we just heard, he's a talented vocalist and songwriter as well. Joining me now on the phone from Las Vegas, Nevada, to talk about his multitude of talents is Robbie Rist. Hey, Rob, welcome to the show.
Dan, it's a pleasure. I believe the word is multitudinous.
It works for me. I wouldn't know because I ain't got it. What inspired you to write a song about having the ability to love surgically removed from your body?
Oh, like everything else, I think it was a bad breakup.
Yeah, there you go.
I was just like, I think at their lowest point, everybody has that thing of like, God, can't you just remove this? It would be so much easier.
Right, yeah. It's a clever twist on it, though. I mean, when you're talking about relationship songs, it always seems like everything's been done, but actually go and schedule an appointment with a doctor and say, you know what, can you surgically remove my ability to love?
Yeah, well, actually, when I was writing it, I kind of see this guy as, he has this malady, and he goes to all of these different doctors, saying, hey, I need you to do this. And they're like, you are nuts. Get out of my office, and his search takes him to an Airstream trailer somewhere out in the middle of the California desert. And, inside this trailer, half of it is like where the guy lives. The other half has been made up into a crude operating room, And and so he's sitting there telling him, hey, you're my last hope. Why don't you, let's get on this thing,
Well, a long time ago, I was at a Blue Oyster Cult concert, and after they played the song Godzilla, about half the audience got up and left, even though there was still quite a bit of show left to come. So ever since then, I've used the phrase, play Godzilla, to represent pacifying casual fans and clearing the way for the more knowledgeable and devoted fans. So for the purposes of this podcast, your acting career is going to be Godzilla. So let's go ahead and play everybody that tune.
Yeah, let's play Godzilla now.
As a child actor, do you ever feel like you belong to a club where the members have no control over the selection process and you're kind of stuck with each other?
What do you mean? You mean other kid actors, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, you're a child actor, you're a child actor, you're a child. It becomes like a club, but you don't control who's in the club. Whoever happened to be on the show as a kid, and kind of what you do reflects on each other. Do you ever get that sense or no?
No, not really. I think, I don't think you're that aware when you're a kid, first off. And secondly,
no. I mean, as an adult, being a former child actor, is it like a club? You're with the Different Strokes kids and everybody else?
Oh, that. Well, I do say all the time that we represent a very thin strata of the populace.
Yeah,
and there's a life experience thing that goes along with that most human beings don't have. That it's something they don't go through, and so it can be kind of I don't know how to say this, kind of a weirdly lonely existence, because there's very little you could, like, if there's an element of it that bugs you or makes you happy or whatever, there's very few people you can really talk to about it.
Mm-hmm.
Other than other actor guys.
Yeah.
And I'm not incredibly close friends with a lot of the. I was never much of an actor hangouter person.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of led an artistic life, I guess you could say, but mostly I find myself gravitating towards everybody but actors.
Mm-hmm.
I find that odd. I don't know, maybe it's just because it's work. You know what I mean? It's like I don't really bring my work home with me.
Well, speaking of work, I got a list of some of the shows you've appeared on. In 1972, you did an episode of Love American Style, so you'd have been, about 8 years old?
Yep, something like that, yeah.
And 74, you played Cousin Oliver on, was it the last 6 episodes of The Brady Bunch?
Last 6 episodes of The Brady Bunch, yeah.
Which has, it's one of American pop culture's most iconic series.
That's a weird one, It's like, it was a hit show when it was on, but it really got weird when it went into syndication. It's sort of like the little art project took on a life of its own, and people started it's a guileless show. It's really innocent, and as people grew up and the show was on TV over and over and over and over again, people started embracing other elements of it. Sort of the cheese element, the kitsch element.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like all of a sudden there was this postmodern spin on this innocent little television show, and then it just got crazy. I've been to foreign countries, and kids will come up and be yelling at me in their native tongue, and the only word I can understand is Brady Bunch. And I just go, really? How is that possible? You're 10,
Yeah, same thing happened. Similar with Star Trek becoming popular in syndication, except it wasn't really much of a hit originally.
Yeah,
but
that's a strange thing. Is that one really? It happened to Brady Bunch too. They really found a new life in syndication.
Yeah, to a certain degree, it happened with It's a Wonderful Life and Wizard of Oz too.
Totally.
Well, now it's my understanding that before you were even cast on that show, it had already been decided that it was going to be the last season. But there's been sort of a public perception that you were somehow responsible for the cancellation of the show. So
I wish I had that kind of power. Think of what I could do with that. I could be like what's his name in The Stuff? Michael Moriarty. I could sort of be an industrial saboteur. You want Lady Gaga to go away? Put me on the road with her.
You could be the show killer hired by the competing network.
Totally. I'm kind of like the cooler of instead of gambling, it's TV.
Yeah. Well, I know. It's completely unfair perception, but I've heard it here and there. I guess what it is, in the Cosby Show, when the youngest actor starts to get older, they try and bring in some little cutie pie, and they're sort of accusing you of starting that.
The Oliver character wasn't an original idea. They brought in little Ricky on the Lucy Show, and there have been sort of kids that were brought on to shows to sort of boost them up all through history. But for some reason, because of the Brady Bunch, I think, being as iconic as it is, that character is sort of like the poster child for kids that are come in at the end of a show and kill it.
Well, after the Bradys, you did a lot of one-time guest spots on shows like The Bionic Woman, Medical Center. One of my favorites at the time, What's Happening?
Yeah, totally.
And in 1976, though, you starred in a show called Big John, Little John that had like a 13-episode run, so you had some continuity with that character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a weird thing in most of my, what I guess for want of a better word, we'll call it career. For most of my career, I was a trench warfare guy. It was mostly guest spots and stuff. I wasn't really on a whole lot of series, especially ones that didn't last, or especially ones that lasted long.
Yeah, I think a lot of actors are in that boat, though. It's kind of hard.
Oh yeah, totally.
So you played Ted Baxter's son on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Yeah, the Mary Tyler Moore thing. I'm proud of most of the work that I've done. I think with a few exceptions, I think I've largely been in some pretty cool stuff. But Mary Tyler Moore is special.
Yeah.
That thing is that's television in a way that Cheers is television. That's television in the way that Taxi is television. It's the way All in the Family is television. It's really it's well written. Actually, I'm here in Vegas doing this. I'm going to be doing this lounge show on Thursday, and it's a sort of centers around TV. And one of the things we're going to do is show some clips of stuff that I've done. And so my buddy Jack and I are kind of going through YouTube and looking for stuff that might have me on it. And the episode of Mary Tyler Moore, when I first showed up, came on, and it's so incredibly sweet. There's a scene where Ted Knight realizes that he's not capable of making children, and it's this really sweet scene of him crying because it's also really hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
That one I'm really proud to have been a part of, because again, that's seriously, to me, that's real TV, the Brady Bunch is kitschy and kind of crazy how, it's sort of all these people glommed onto it.
Yeah.
But Mary Tyler Moore thing's pretty amazing.
Let's put it this way. Both those shows were loved, but maybe Mary Tyler Moore was respected.
Yeah, that's a good way of wording it. Totally. Yeah, sure.
Now, you also did some after-school specials. What were some of the valuable life lessons you were able to impart to your peers?
Well, let's see. Seven Wishes of a Rich Kid. What was that one? Oh, that one's all about being yourself. Let's see, what I did one called Alexander, which it was me and Jodie Foster of all people.
Wow.
We're both like real like little newts, we're like little tiny people, and I think that's my first crying scene. I think because it's with Red Buttons, plays an old kind of a crazy old man that lives in the neighborhood, and at some point he dies. It's pretty amazing.
Now, for the actors who can't naturally cry, do they have some kind of glycerin thing they do to fake it?
Well, I'm not one of those actors, Dan.
But you've been on the set with people with less skill than yourself.
That's right. Those bastards. Take a few lessons.
The one I always wonder about that I think would challenge me if I was an actor would be the faking dead thing. Every once in a while, a character has to pretend to be dead. Mm-hmm. And many of them, you watch closely, you can see their rib cage slowly going up and down.
There's a parody of All in the Family that was in Mad Magazine back in the early 70s, and in it, Archie is going out to see the movie Joe, which was a film with Peter Boyle about a blue-collar construction guy whose daughter takes up with a bunch of hippies, and at the end, Joe loses it and shoots them all. and so Archie's going to see the movie, and he says, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to go see Joe." "You've seen Joe 23 times in a row." And he goes, "I'll tell you why. Because at the end of that movie, when Joe shoots all those hippies, well, one of them's breathing, and I'm going to keep watching that movie until he gets it right." Actually, people say that, acting is, you sort of stand there and say the words. But really, it's actually a way harder job than that. And depending on what you're called upon to do in the particular gig, it can be really difficult. When they did the Grinch thing, Jim Carrey, the suit was so uncomfortable that they had to hire a Marine guy who was a specialist in torture, and he gave Jim Carrey all of these techniques to just handle the pain.
Just survive the role.
Yeah, just to not go crazy. I mean,
wow.
It's back in the day, when Michael Jackson did Thriller, at the end when he opens his eyes, and he's got those werewolf eyes in there, those things are called scleral lenses. Scleral lenses are hard lenses that cover your entire eye, and you can only wear them for about 15 minutes at a time, or else your eye starts to dry up and die.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing for an actor to go through. You have to sort of be this character with that, you know what I mean? With being incredibly distracted by the fact that, oh my God, I could go blind doing this.
Well, around 1990, that's when you first did the voice of Michelangelo, the pizza-loving Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Did you view that as a breakthrough role and a ticket to a voiceover career, or was it just another job that just happened to get more attention than your other roles?
Well, I already had a voiceover career going, and that was it was another gig. I was hoping that, doing it would have been like a doorway to, getting more work, but it never really came of that. Nobody really, outside of maybe Corey, but he has his own kind of wacky career going, but nobody really on that show ever really, busted through, but that's another one where it's like the Brady Bunch in that, there's like a new audience for it all of the time. There's always going to be, no matter what gender you are, there's going to be a 7-year-old boy in you that will respond to that movie.
Well, it's been a long, long time since I've seen the Brady Bunch episodes you were in. Decades. But I actually have a memory of an appearance you did on a John Denver TV special.
Sure.
It seems like someone thought it would be funny to have the audience just look at you guys side to side and look at the resemblance. But the problem was neither one of you really had anything to say about it, and I don't think they really wrote any material for you guys, so it had an awkward kind of vibe
Well,
to it.
that was actually on that particular one was on the American Music Awards,
Okay.
and they just had me come out and present him with the trophy. But I did one of his specials. There was a bit where Dick Van Dyke was It's amazing the people that I've worked with. You know, and sometimes I look back and I go, "Oh my God, I worked with Dick Van Dyke. That's crazy." But Dick Van Dyke does a magic trick where he takes John Denver and turns him into me.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, yeah, that was a weird thing because, I'm German. I have German immigrant parents. And, there's a lot of guys with, kind of bowl haircuts and glasses, round glasses in Germany. But there just weren't that many in America, apparently, at that time. And, John Dutchendorf, well, and yeah, it's such a weird bit of synchronicity, a kismet, I don't know, what do you want to call it, serendipity, that just at that particular time, during that particular period in history, there were two people in entertainment walking around of different ages who had kind of a similar thing going. That wasn't developed. It wasn't like, hey, let's make Robbie look like John Denver, which I never really thought I did. I thought I always looked more like Paul Williams. But people think that it's sort of like it was sort of a planned thing. But the odd thing was one day I was at an audition or something, and someone was like, "That kid looks like John Denver," and all of a sudden off went.
Yeah. Well, is it true that you auditioned to play his son in the film Oh God?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Carl Reiner. It was me and Moosey Dreyer. It was going to be one of the two of us, and they went with Moosey because Carl Reiner actually called my mom up and said we were going to go with Robbie, but it would have been too much of a joke.
It would have looked like a cheap sight gag.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, and the story is about something very sweet and cool. It's a great movie.
It was John Denver's first acting role, I believe. You could have taught him some tips.
Yeah.
What I just heard you say is Mary Tyler Moore, Dick Van Dyke, and Carl Reiner. How about Maury Amsterdam?
No, I've never worked with him, but
I never worked with
wait a minute, I may have worked with Rose Marie though.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I might have. Yeah, I mean that's weird. We were talking about what's happening earlier. I did that show with Dick Van Patten and the guy who played Larry Tate on Bewitched.
Yeah.
That's character actor gold, man.
Yeah.
You go. For me, that's an honor. That's amazing. That I was like, I didn't realize at the time. I was just like, I'm at work, whatever. But I go back and look at all of these things, and I go, man, you would think I would have more money.
Well, let me ask you a general question. As a person who's experienced a degree of fame for virtually his entire life, how do you think the accessibility that the Internet offers has affected the nature of fame?
In what way? It's affected everything.
Well, in the past, I would have never had any way to know Robbie Rist. Now there are a lot of people that I know, a lot of people I've interviewed for this show that I would have never known without the accessibility of the Internet. So do you think that it sort of made fame a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but, so you were famous before the Internet and you were famous after. Have you noticed a difference?
Well, for me, not really, but yeah, I think you're right though. Is that it has made it easier to get famous. I mean, the Star Wars kid. Yeah. Here's somebody who he didn't even want to be in the entertainment business, and he was like the biggest thing on the planet for a few weeks. So yeah, it's gotten. I mean, I don't think without the internet, the Kardashians would have all that they have. Without the internet, the Hills wouldn't have been such a big show. So one could say that the technology cuts both ways.
Yeah, and it kind of cheapens it in a way.
Yeah, now you have people who really have no business being in the entertainment business, and yet, they are,
I think there's a certain segment of celebrities who might have been feeling a bit forgotten, might be past their heyday, and they're really relishing the opportunity to connect directly with their fans and feel some of the adulation that's still out there for them.
Sure. I'm sure that's true in some cases. I use the internet regularly as a promotion tool.
Yeah, for up-and-coming performers looking to get exposure and build an audience, I'm sure it's a very useful tool.
If you know how to do it well, look at the Arctic Monkeys. These guys, they were, I would say the Arctic Monkeys are probably the first internet band.
What about a phenomenon like auto-tuning the news,
Yeah, I know. That's pretty awesome.
You just have a clever idea, and boom, you're it.
Well, that is the viral aspect of it is really crazy. The fact that you can make, OK Go did a hell of a job of using it in that way. Mm-hmm. Those crazy videos that they made. it all of a sudden there was a whole bunch of people who were aware of OK Go who probably wouldn't have otherwise. So at that point, they're just another rock band.
I can also see how stars of a certain stature might feel that the internet and its direct communication with the public possibility is like beneath them. But of course, in fairness, just logistically, the most popular entertainers have too many fans to be able to deal with them all personally, even if they wanted to. But you know, I as I said, for up and comers or for people that are just, you know, personable and don't take themselves too seriously, or people who were kind of a star in the past, and I can see how there's a different sort of dimension or aspect to fame. The basic thing hasn't changed. You have to sort of do something to attain it. But
I'm sure, like, I know, you know, I was doing autograph shows for a while, you know, make some cash, and at one of those things, I mean, I've had all kinds of, you know, crazy people. You know, I'm a really big Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory fan, and I met Violet Beauregard's dad.
Oh, yeah.
At one of these things. And, you know, there's a guy who probably benefits. I also met the woman who played the main character in Frankenhooker. I'm a really big Frank Henenlotter fan. I love his movies. And you know, those are two examples of people who probably the internet benefits them.
Well, I know all the different roles you've played probably seem like jobs to you, but as I'm sure you're aware to a large segment of the audience, they seem to mean so much more. I know by now you've had a lot of experience dealing with that sort of reverential fan worship mentality, but it has to be somewhat alienating for you. As you mentioned, you know, the lonely child actor. What have you found to be the best way to handle a person who comes at you like that?
Well, you know, if you're going to be in the public eye, get used to it. I mean, it's part of the job. You're an entertainer, and your job as an entertainer is that you're selling fantasy. You're selling a version of yourself that, you know, you may not be all of the time. And if people respond to that very favorably, you know, you owe it to them to at least be friendly, you know? And, you know, it's all on the resume. And, you know, I mean, I've had weird experiences with it, like you know, the Brady Bunch thing, which, again, for years I thought, what is the big fuss? It's this dumb 70s TV show. What's the problem with you people? And, you know, it really was that Shatner sort of like, well, have you ever kissed a girl? You know, that thing. And I was, one time this guy walks up to me and he says, you know, when I was a kid, he said, my mom had 3 jobs and, you know, I was a latchkey kid. I mean, you know, I spent hours upon hours alone locked in this apartment with the TV as, you know, my babysitter, basically. And he said that the Oliver episodes of the Brady Bunch kind of helped him get through those years because here was a kid who was close to his age who was trapped in a world he never made either. And I was like, wow, that's profound. I mean, that makes the thing bigger than what I thought it was.
It completely changes your perspective, right?
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that. You know, and you know, I don't know why I would not have thought that. I mean, you know.
Well, you know, as a participant in it, like I said, you remember the downtime, the things that went wrong, and, you know, everybody else just looks at it, they see the show itself, and that's all they know. And, you know, it has personal meaning to them that you could never really know because it's their personal experience.
If you make anything, you can't, you know, you'll never have the same view of it that other people do. You know, I'm sure James Cameron is proud of Titanic, but the experience that other people had, he can never understand. So if there was some, you know, 35-year-old woman who saw that and, you know, it just made her cry for days, he, you know, maybe that was the desired effect, but he'll never look at the movie that way. He can't see it as, you know, it's like music, and you know, you're a musician, you know this. We don't listen to music as a wash. We listen to each individual instrument. And most people who don't play music don't hear it that way. They hear it just as this whole thing coming out of the speakers at you.
Yeah, they are definitely different levels you can experience it on. You know, in terms of the Brady Bunch, one thing that's important to remember is most of the principal characters were kids of various ages. So when I watched that show, I was around the same age as Bobby and Cindy. You know, and then later when I watched it, I was around the same age as Peter and Jan, and then Greg and Marcia. Now I'm probably older than Alice, but you know, I'm just saying is that, you know, that's part of it too. Appeal of that show was, you know, in Star Trek, I could maybe imagine myself to be an adult traveling through space, but their type of problems they had were things that may come up in my life, and that might be one reason that show's hung on. But I know that the 70s, that this fashion and the music and Johnny Bravo and all the kitsch of it, I really thought that it was pretty ingenious the way they made the film in the 90s, where they addressed all that. They made the Bradys seem lame to everyone around them who was into grunge, etc. But the Bradys were so happy that by the end of it, they kind of won you over with their sort of 70s optimism, which of course was never really real. It was a creation of...
Right, but also, we're back to the sort of the guilelessness of that show.
Yeah,
it really is that innocent. And Sherwood Schwartz, man, that guy's a genius. I mean, I don't know how he. I wonder if he has a book out. I'll have to see about that. But I mean, I don't know how he saw the show itself. But in both cases, Gilligan's Island and Brady Bunch, these sort of silly, again, guileless, innocent shows that people to this day still attach themselves to.
Yeah.
And that's, and it's decades old. I mean, people aren't even doing that with the Lucille Ball show. Name your television shows through history. Very few of them have that kind of a ride.
Yeah, even shows like The Honeymooners have run their course.
Yeah, totally. I mean, people still watch it and they still enjoy it, but Brady Bunch. I've been lucky in this entertainment thing, in that the turtle thing. Also, I've managed to get involved with things that had legs. They stuck around for a while.
Yeah. Well, speaking of guileless entertainment, why don't you tell me about, as we listen to Godzilla fade out here, why don't you tell me about this project you have coming up with Disney Junior, Doc McStuffins?
Yeah. It's a show created by a woman named Chris Nee. She she's been around kids programming for a lot of years. She went around the world prepping all of the different countries' Sesame Street casts. So she makes the show that she sold to Disney Junior about a little girl who's a doctor her parents are doctors, and she's a doctor for toys. And it just turns out that whatever malady the toy has could be something that, a little kid might have. So they have episodes about being scared of going to the doctor and, all these kind of things. It's super sweet. It's adorable. I get to sing in it. Kay Hanley from Letters to Cleo, the band Letters to Cleo, she writes the songs for it. And so they're like, she's a total Cheap Trick person. So like all the songs are these really, really great pop songs.
Wow.
And I'm that's another one that I'm like, I'm really proud of this. I get to kind of do things in it that I'm not necessarily known for. I'm not really, as an actor, I'm not really known as a singer. Actually, as a singer, I'm not really known as a singer. But
yeah, I was wondering if at some point your musical and acting talents were able to converge into some type of role. It sounds like here in 2012, it's finfinally happened.
Yeah, well, it's about damn time. Yeah, totally. And I'm very, very happy about that. So yeah, it starts March 23rd. It's going to be on Disney Junior. It's if you got 3 to 5 year olds, that's really what they're aiming at. But I've seen footage of the thing already, and when we were recording them, okay, I admit I'm a pansy. It's just kind of how it is. But a lot of those scripts made me tear up. There's a lot of really sweet moments in it, and I think Chris has a really good soul. I think it comes out in the thing that she makes.
Well, I'll tell you, my boys are turning 5 and 2 this year, so all 3 of us will be watching it.
Yeah, right on. Beautiful. Good. Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy thing. Disney's into it. I mean, they're already talking toys and things like that, and for a first-year show, they never do that.
This is the big break you've been waiting for, man.
Oh, from your mouth to God's ears, my friend.
Okay, well, we've played Godzilla. Now we're gonna play Wonder Boy.
Wait! Before we do it, don't leave yet. No. Wait, no, we got other songs. Just keep going. Just stay there. Don't leave yet. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. That was definitely for the benefit of the Brady people. Well, I'll tell you, the song I'm about to play has some great lyrics, which I can certainly relate to personally, and I'm sure our listeners will be able to as well, particularly the male members of the audience. And I think it's particularly poignant coming from you, since you're frozen in time in so many minds out there as a kid. This is by one of your earlier bands called Wonder Boy. It's a song called Not a Kid Anymore.
You close your eyes for a second. Your mothers seem more like children than they did before. I have no trouble approaching girls that I don't